Daddy?" The word was a whisper, but in the silence of the crowded diner, it sounded like a gunshot. Sebastian Sterling, the Alpha King who ruled the continent with an iron fist, froze. He looked down at the 6-year-old girl in muddy rain boots standing before him. She didn't fear him. She didn't tremble. She just pointed to the crescent moon birthmark on his neck and dropped the bomb that would shatter his world. "My mummy has that same mark. She cries when she looks at it." In that second, the king realized the woman he had mourned for 5 years wasn't dead. She was hiding, and she had taken his heir with her. This is the story of a love that defied death, a betrayal that ran through royal blood, and the little girl who brought an empire to its knees. The rain in Astoria, Oregon, didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Sebastian Sterling hated it. He hated the smell of wet pine, the scent of damp rust, and the overwhelming mediocrity of the low-ranking packs that scraped by in these fringe territories. As the Alpha King, his life was usually a series of boardrooms in Manhattan, private jets, and high-stakes negotiations with the European councils. He shouldn't be here, standing in the corner of Sal's Diner, waiting for a local beta named Harrison to bring him the quarterly territory reports. He checked his watch, a Patek Philippe that cost more than the building he was standing in. 2:14 p.m. "Your coffee, sir," a waitress mumbled, dropping a chipped mug on the Formica table. She didn't look him in the eye. No one did. Even in his human form, Sebastian radiated a dominance that made weaker wolves' knees buckle. He was 6'4" of contained violence, tailored into a 3-piece charcoal suit that felt like a straitjacket in this humidity. His wolf, a massive black beast named Ares, paced restlessly in the back of his mind. "Something is here," Ares growled. "Something familiar." "It's just the damp dog smell of the locals," Sebastian muttered under his breath, taking a sip of the bitter coffee. The bell above the diner door jingled. The wind howled, blowing a spray of rain inside. A woman rushed in, head ducked low, shaking a dripping umbrella. She was wearing a faded, oversized hoodie and jeans that had seen better days. But Sebastian didn't look at her. He looked at the small bundle of energy trailing behind her. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6. She was wearing bright yellow rain boots that squeaked against the linoleum. She had wild, curly hair that hadn't seen a comb in hours, and she was clutching a battered plastic dinosaur. The mother, Sebastian assumed it was the mother, was busy arguing with the hostess about a takeout order that was wrong. Her voice was raspy, tired. "I specifically asked for no onions, Sal. Lily can't eat onions. Her stomach—" The little girl, ignored for the moment, scanned the room. Her eyes were in startling electric blue. Sebastian froze. He knew those eyes. He saw them every time he looked in the mirror. The girl's gaze locked onto him. Most children cried when they looked at Sebastian. He had a scar running through his left eyebrow, a souvenir from the coup of 2018, and a scowl that permanently etched his face. But the girl didn't cry. She tilted her head. She started walking toward him. "Lily, get back here!" the mother called out, distracted by the receipt. Lily ignored her. She walked right up to the Alpha King's booth. She smelled like strawberries and something else. Something that made Ares slam against Sebastian's ribcage, howling. "Pack, blood, mine." Sebastian set his coffee down slowly. The diner went quiet. Even the fry cook stopped scraping the grill. Everyone knew you didn't approach the king. "Hi," the girl said. Sebastian looked down at her. "Hello?" "You look like the man in Mommy's picture," she said matter-of-factly. Sebastian's heart hammered a rhythm he hadn't felt in years. "What picture?" "The one she keeps in the shoebox under the bed. The one she cries at when she drinks the red juice." Sebastian's hands clenched into fists under the table. "Who is your mother?" The girl pointed a small finger towards the counter, where the woman in the hoodie was now frantically shoving styrofoam boxes into a paper bag, clearly trying to leave as fast as possible. The woman's back was turned, but the hoodie had slipped off one shoulder. "That's Clara," the girl whispered. Then she leaned in, as if sharing a state secret. "She has a mark, like a moon, right here." She tapped her own small shoulder. "My mummy has the same moon mark," she said, her voice innocent but shattering, "just like the one on your neck." Sebastian stopped breathing. He involuntarily touched the crescent-shaped birthmark on the side of his neck, the mark of the Sterling line. It wasn't just a birthmark, it was genetic, dominant. Only the direct descendants of the Alpha King carried it. And his mate, the woman he had lost 5 years ago in the Great Fire of Chicago. She didn't have that mark. But if she had survived, and if she had been pregnant, Ares roared. The sound wasn't physical, but the psychic pressure shattered the coffee mug on the table. Hot liquid spilled over Sebastian's expensive suit, but he didn't feel it. His wolf stood, fully alert, hackles raised. "Mate, pup!" Sebastian stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor, sounding like a gunshot. The woman at the counter froze. She didn't turn around. She just went completely still, like a deer hearing the twig snap. "Clara," Sebastian said. His voice was low, a rumble of thunder that shook the silverware on the tables. The woman dropped the takeout bag. She didn't look back. She grabbed the girl's hand. "Lily, run! Lily, run!" The sheer terror in the woman's voice cut through Sebastian like a silver blade. She didn't wait for the child to process the command. She scooped the girl up, yellow rain boots flailing, and bolted out the door into the pouring rain. "Stop her!" Sebastian roared. The command carried the weight of the alpha voice. Every shifter in the diner, the cook, the waitress, the patrons, instinctively dropped to their knees, their necks bared in submission. But the woman wasn't submitting. She was running. Sebastian vaulted over the booth, his movements a blur of supernatural speed. He burst through the diner doors, the glass rattling in his wake. Outside, the rain was torrential. The grey sky obscured everything. He looked left, then right. He saw the taillights of a beat-up 2008 Honda Civic, flaring red as it peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching on the wet asphalt. She was fast, too fast for a human. "She's a wolf," Ares snarled in his head. "But she's masking her scent." How? Sebastian didn't bother with a car. He didn't need one. He stripped off his suit jacket, throwing the Italian silk into a puddle, and let the change take him. Bones cracked and reshaped, muscles swelled, fur, black as midnight, sprouted from his skin. In seconds, a massive black wolf stood in the parking lot. He launched himself forward, claws digging into the pavement for traction. He was the fastest wolf on the continent. A Honda Civic didn't stand a chance. He cut through the woods, taking a direct line to intercept the road as it curved around the mountain. The scent of her fear was potent now. It tasted like vanilla and panic. But underneath it, there was that undeniable scent he had mourned for 5 years. Clara, he remembered her. Clara Jensen, the quiet Omega librarian who had worked in the archives of his pack house. They had a secret affair, hidden from his father, the previous king. When the fire happened, they found a body in her apartment. Dental records matched. He had buried her. He had mourned her. He had turned his heart to stone because of her. So who was driving that car? The Honda skidded around a hairpin turn. Sebastian lunged from the tree line, landing squarely in the middle of the road, a dark nightmare blocking her path. The car screeched, fishtailing wildly before slamming into the guardrail. Metal crunched. Steam hissed from the radiator. Sebastian shifted back. He stood naked in the rain, uncaring, his chest heaving. He strode towards the car. The driver's side door was jammed. He ripped it off its hinges with one hand and tossed it aside like cardboard. Inside, Clara was shaking, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. She was clutching the steering wheel with white knuckles. In the back seat, Lily was screaming, but she was strapped in safe. "Get out!" Sebastian growled. Clara turned to look at him, and there it was. the face that haunted his dreams. She looked older, tired, lines of worry etched around her eyes. But it was her. The same hazel eyes, the same stubborn chin. "You were dead," Sebastian whispered, the rain plastering his hair to his face. "I buried you." "You buried a Jane Doe I paid off the coroner to switch records with," Clara spat, her voice trembling but defiant. "Go to hell, Sebastian." "You have my daughter. I have my daughter," she hissed. She reached under the seat. Sebastian's instincts flared. Weapon. He grabbed her wrist before she could pull the gun. He yanked her out of the car, pinning her against the wet metal of the hood. The heat between them was instantaneous. The mate bond, dormant for years, flared to life like a gasoline explosion. It was painful, intoxicating. "Why?" he demanded, his face inches from hers. "Why did you run? Why let me think you were gone?" Clara looked up at him, rain mingling with the tears on her face. "Because I knew what you would do to her," she screamed over the thunder. "I knew your father said only a pure-blood alpha female could carry the air. I knew you were engaged to Beatrice delicately to secure the southern border. If you knew about Lily, you would have taken her and disposed of me. Or worse, Beatrice would have killed us both." Sebastian froze. Beatrice. Beatrice Vance was the woman the council had been pressuring him to marry for years, the daughter of the Southern Alpha, a woman who smiled with too many teeth. "My father is dead, Clara," Sebastian said, his voice dropping. "I am the king now. No one touches what is mine." "You think being king makes you safe?" Clara laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Who do you think set the fire, Sebastian? Who do you think tried to burn me alive in my apartment 5 years ago?" The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Sebastian loosened his grip on her wrists. "It wasn't an accident?" "It was a hit," Clara whispered. "Ordered by the council. Signed off by your mother." Sebastian took a step back, reeling. His mother? The Dowager Queen? Catherine Sterling? The woman who knitted sweaters and organized charity galas? "You're lying," he snarled. "Look at Lily." Clara pointed to the back seat, where the little girl was watching them with wide, terrified eyes. "Look at the mark on her shoulder. She is the strongest alpha blood born in a century. She shifted for the first time when she was 3, Sebastian. 3. Do you know how dangerous that is? If the council finds out, they will dissect her." Sebastian looked past Clara to the little girl. Lily had stopped crying. She had unbuckled herself and was pressing her hand against the glass. As he watched, her eyes glowed a luminous, brilliant gold. Not the blue of a pup, the gold of a king. Sebastian felt his knees hit the wet asphalt. He wasn't bowing to the elements. He was bowing to the truth. He looked up at Clara, the woman he loved, the woman who had lived in poverty for 5 years to protect his child from his own family. "Get in the car," he said, his voice rough. "No," Clara said, crossing her arms. "I'm not going back to that snake pit." "You can't stay here. You blew your cover. That waiter at the diner, he's already texting the gossip sites. By morning, every bounty hunter from here to New York will know a girl with the sterling moon mark was seen in Oregon." Clara paled. She knew he was right. "Get in the car, Clara," Sebastian said, extending a hand. "I'm not taking you to the pack house. I'm taking you to the safe house. And then I'm going to find out who tried to kill you." He paused, his eyes darkening to pitch black. "And I'm going to rip their throat out." Clara hesitated. She looked at his hand, the hand of the man who had once braided her hair, the man who was now the most powerful monster in the world. She took it. The safe house wasn't a house. It was a fortress disguised as modern architecture. Buried deep within the dense pine forests of the Cascade Mountains, the structure was steel, glass, and reinforced concrete, cantilevered over a rushing river. Sebastian parked the battered Honda Civic, which he had insisted on driving to avoid tracking signals on his own phone, inside the hidden garage. The heavy blast doors hissed shut, sealing them off from the storm and the world. Silence descended, heavy, suffocating. Clara unbuckled Lily in the back seat. Her hands were shaking so bad she couldn't work the plastic clasp. "Let me," Sebastian said. His voice was gentle, a stark contrast to the monster who had ripped a car door off its hinges 10 minutes ago. Clara flinched as he leaned in, but she didn't pull away. Sebastian smelled the fear on her, sour and sharp, and it made his wolf whine in distress. He deftly clicked the buckle open and lifted the sleeping child into his arms. Lily, exhausted from the adrenaline, curled instantly against his chest, her small hand gripping the lapel of his ruined bespoke shirt. "She feels safe with you," Clara whispered, stepping out of the car. She hugged her arms around herself, shivering in her damp hoodie. She never let strangers hold her. "I am not a stranger," Sebastian said, his eyes burning gold for a split second. "I am her father." He turned and led them into the main living area. It was cold, sterile, and dusty. He hadn't been here in years. He placed Lily gently on a plush leather sofa and covered her with a cashmere throw. Then he turned to Clara. "The heating will kick in soon. There's a first aid kit in the bathroom down the hall. Brandy in the cabinet." "I don't want brandy, Sebastian," Clara said, her voice gaining strength. "I want answers. You said your mother ordered the hit. Prove you didn't know." Sebastian paced the room, his energy restless. "I spent 3 years hunting for your killer. I tortured the arsonist who set the fire until he begged for death. He told me it was a rival pack from the east. I wiped that pack off the map. I killed 300 wolves to avenge you." Clara's eyes widened. She hadn't known. In her exile, living off cash tips and fake IDs, news of the Alpha King's war hadn't reached her. "The arsonist lied," Clara said softly. "Or he was a pawn." She reached into her bra and pulled out a small, tarnished silver locket. She popped it open. Inside wasn't a picture, but a tiny micro SD card taped to the metal. "My brother, before he died in the fire with me. He was working security for the council," Clara explained, tears welling up. "He hacked the security feeds. He sent me this audio file 2 minutes before the explosion. It's the only reason I wasn't in the bedroom when the bomb went off. I was in the bathroom, shielding my stomach." Sebastian stared at the SD card like it was radioactive. "Play it." Clara walked to the high-tech console on the wall, inserted the card, and typed in a sequence of keys. Static filled the room. Then voices, clear as a bell. "Is it done, Silas?" Sebastian stopped breathing. That was his mother's voice. "Queen Catherine. Proper, elegant, cold. The charges are set, Your Majesty," a deep, gravelly voice replied. "Silas, the royal executioner, a man Sebastian had trusted with his life since he was a boy. The Omega and the unborn bastard will be ash by midnight. Good, Sebastian must marry Beatrice Calloway. We cannot have a low-born librarian tainting the bloodline. Make it look like an electrical fault. And Silas, make sure she suffers." The recording clicked off. Sebastian stood frozen. The rage that filled him wasn't hot. It was absolute zero. It was the kind of cold that shattered worlds. His mother. The woman who had comforted him at Clara's empty grave. The woman who had urged him to move on. To marry Beatrice for the good of the pack. She had ordered the murder of his mate and his unborn child. "She suffers," Sebastian repeated the words, his voice unrecognizable. He looked at Clara. She looked so small, so broken, yet she had survived. She had raised a child with the blood of kings in trailer parks and motels, running from shadows, all to keep his daughter alive. He crossed the room in 2 strides and fell to his knees before her. The Alpha King, the apex predator, knelt on the hardwood floor and buried his face in her stomach. "I am sorry," he choked out, his shoulders shaking. "I am so sorry." Clara hesitated, her hand hovering over his dark hair. Then the bond won. She wove her fingers through his hair, pulling him close. "It wasn't your fault, Bash, but we aren't safe. If she knows I'm alive—" "She won't know," Sebastian promised, looking up, his eyes hard. "Because we are going to kill her first." "No," a small voice piped up. They both froze. Lily was sitting up on the couch, rubbing her eyes. Her plastic dinosaur was clutched in one hand. "Daddy can't kill Grandma," Lily said, her logic simple and childish. "That's mean." Sebastian stood up slowly and walked over to the couch. He sat on the edge, terrified he would break her. "Lily, do you know who I am?" Lily nodded. "You're the Wolf King. Mummy told me stories. She said you were lost in the dark, and we had to hide until you found your light." Sebastian felt a lump in his throat the size of a fist. He looked at Clara. She never poisoned the child against him. She made him a hero. "Well," Sebastian whispered, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead, "I found my light." Suddenly, the perimeter alarm blared. A red light began to pulse on the wall console. "Proximity alert. Sector 4. Sebastian's head snapped up. Someone followed us." "How?" Clara panicked, grabbing Lily. "We ditched the car. We took the back roads." "I didn't bring my phone," Sebastian growled, his eyes shifting to his wrist. "My watch." The Patek Philippe. It had a GPS transponder for his security team. He ripped the watch off his wrist and smashed it against the wall, shattering the mechanism. "Is it Silas?" Clara asked, terror draining the color from her face. Sebastian moved to the window, peering through the blast shutters. He saw headlights cutting through the rain, black SUVs. 3 of them. They weren't council cars. They were unmarked. "No," Sebastian said, his voice dropping to a deadly growl. "It's not Silas. It's Beatrice." Beatrice Calloway stepped out of the lead SUV, her heels sinking into the mud. She didn't care about the mud. She didn't care about the rain ruining her $500 blowout. She stared up at the glass house jutting out of the cliffside. "You're sure he's in there?" she asked the man beside her. "Tracker signal died 2 minutes ago, Miss Calloway. But the heat signature confirms 3 bodies inside. 1 male, 1 female, 1 small." Beatrice's lips curled into a snarl. She was beautiful in a sharp, predatory way. Blonde hair, icy blue eyes, and a heart made of pure ambition. For 5 years, she had played the role of the patient fiancé. She had waited for Sebastian to get over his grieving period. She had endured his coldness, his refusal to touch her. She thought he was just broken, but 10 minutes ago, her contact at the Oregon diner had sent her a photo, a grainy cell phone picture of Sebastian Sterling staring at a little girl with curly hair. Beatrice wasn't stupid. She saw the resemblance, and she knew what it meant. If that child lived, Beatrice would never be queen. "Burn it," she said. The mercenary beside her blinked. "Ma'am, the Alpha King is inside." "I said burn it," she screamed, her mask slipping. "Use the incendiary rounds. If Sebastian dies, it's a tragedy. My father will take over the council in the power vacuum. But that bitch and her brat do not leave this mountain alive." The mercenaries raised their rifles. These weren't normal guns. They were loaded with Wolf's Bane-infused explosive rounds. Inside the house, Sebastian heard the click of the safety catches. His hearing was far beyond any normal wolf. "Get to the panic room," Sebastian ordered Clara. "Take Lily. Go." "What about you? I'm going to buy you time." "Sebastian, no. There are too many of them." "Clara." He grabbed her face, kissing her hard, a kiss of desperation and possession. "I lost you once. I will burn the world to ash before I lose you again. Go." He shoved her toward the hidden panel in the bookshelf. Clara grabbed Lily and ran into the darkness of the panic room. The steel door sealed shut with a heavy thud. Sebastian turned to the front door. He cracked his neck. He stripped off his shirt. The first grenade shattered the front window, exploding in a fireball that engulfed the living room. Sebastian didn't flinch. He walked through the fire, his skin blistering and healing in seconds. He stepped out onto the porch, the flames framing him like a demon rising from hell. Beatrice gasped. He was magnificent, terrifying. "Beatrice," Sebastian roared, his voice shaking the trees. "You made a mistake coming here." "Give me the girl, Sebastian," Beatrice yelled back, hiding behind her guards. "Give me the bastard, and we can go back to New York." We can pretend this never happened." "She is not a bastard," Sebastian said, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried on the wind. "She is the queen." He shifted. This time the shift was violent. His wolf, Ares, had been denied his mate and pup for 5 years. The rage was catastrophic. He grew larger than he had ever been, a behemoth of shadow and muscle, standing nearly 7 feet tall at the shoulder. The mercenaries opened fire. Bullets struck him, puffing little clouds of fur and blood. But Sebastian didn't stop. He was a blur of motion. He tore through the first guard, snapping his neck before the man could scream. He swatted the second one into a tree with enough force to shatter his spine. It wasn't a fight. It was a slaughter. Beatrice scrambled back towards the SUV, fumbling for her door handle. "Drive! Drive!" she screamed at her driver. But the driver was gone. Sebastian had ripped him through the windshield. Beatrice turned around, trembling, to find the massive black wolf standing over her. Hot, bloody breath huffed into her face. "Kill her," Ares commanded. She threatened the pup. Sebastian raised a massive paw, claws extended like daggers. "Wait!" Beatrice screamed. "If you kill me, you'll never find out where your mother is keeping the rest of them." Sebastian froze. He shifted back to human form, naked, covered in blood, his hand wrapped around Beatrice's throat. He lifted her off the ground. "What rest of them?" he snarled. Beatrice clawed at his hand, gasping for air. The experiments. Clara wasn't the only one. Your mother. She's been taking Omega women for years, trying to breed. A controllable weapon. Lily isn't just a child, Sebastian. She's the control group." Sebastian threw Beatrice against the side of the SUV. She slumped to the ground, coughing. "Where?" "The old asylum," Beatrice wheezed. "Blackwood Ridge. That's where the lab is. That's where your mother is right now." Sebastian looked back at the burning house. The panic room was fireproof, but the heat would eventually get through. He had to get Clara and Lily out. But he also had a destination now. He knocked Beatrice unconscious with a single blow to the temple. He wouldn't kill her yet. She was his hostage, his leverage against the South. He turned and ran back into the inferno to retrieve his family. The war had just begun, and for the first time, the king had something to fight for. The drive to Blackwood Ridge took 4 hours. They had ditched the Honda for one of Beatrice's armored SUVs, with the unconscious southern heiress bound and gagged in the trunk. The atmosphere inside the car was thick with tension. Lily had finally fallen asleep across Clara's lap, clutching her dinosaur, oblivious to the fact that her father was driving them towards the heart of darkness. Sebastian gripped the steering wheel so tight the leather creaked. "Tell me about the experiments," he said, his eyes fixed on the rain-slicked road. Clara stroked Lily's hair, her face pale in the passing headlights. "I didn't know about them until recently. I started hearing whispers on the underground Omega networks. Women disappearing. Women who had potential. They call it Project Genesis." "My mother," Sebastian said, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. "She always talked about strengthening the bloodline. I thought she meant arranged marriages. I didn't think she meant breeding farms." Blackwood Ridge loomed ahead, a sprawling, derelict Victorian asylum perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was supposed to be abandoned, a ghost story for local teenagers. But as they approached the rusty gates, Sebastian saw the new electric fencing humming in the dark. He parked the SUV in the woods, a mile out. "Stay here," he ordered. "No," Clara said, her voice steel. "Those are my people in there. Omegas. I'm coming with you." "Clara, it's too dangerous." "I'm not asking, Alpha," she cut him off. "I'm telling you, Lily stays in the car. Beatrice isn't going anywhere. But I am coming with you." Sebastian looked at her. He saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had kept her alive for 5 years. He nodded. "Stay behind me." They moved through the perimeter like shadows. Sebastian took out the guards at the gate, silently, snapping necks before they could raise the alarm. They slipped into the main building through a service entrance Clara remembered from old blueprints. Her librarian mind never forgot a detail. The inside of the asylum didn't look abandoned. The crumbling facade hid a state-of-the-art laboratory. White walls, steel doors, the hum of heavy machinery, and the smell. It hit Sebastian first, the scent of fear. Stale, old fear. And underneath it, the scent of pups. "Oh God," Clara whispered, covering her mouth. They reached a viewing gallery overlooking a massive central chamber. Below them, rows of glass cells lined the walls. Inside the cells were women. Some were pregnant. Some were holding infants. They looked gaunt, terrified, their eyes vacant. And in the center of the room, standing over a table covered in charts and blood samples, was Queen Catherine Sterling. She looked exactly as Sebastian remembered her. Immaculate white suit, pearls, grey hair coiffed to perfection. She was holding a vial of glowing blue liquid. "Subject 45 is failing," Catherine said to a man in a lab coat. "The serum is too potent. The fetus can't handle the alpha transition in utero. Dispose of it." "Mother!" The roar shattered the glass of the viewing gallery. Sebastian didn't bother with the stairs. He leapt through the broken window, landing on the floor of the lab with a thunderous crash. Clara stood at the railing above, aiming a tranq gun she had taken from a guard. Catherine spun around. Her eyes widened, but she didn't panic. She smiled, a cold, serpentine smile. "Sebastian," she said, smoothing her skirt, "you're early. I wasn't expecting you until the annual gala." "What have you done?" Sebastian snarled, stepping toward her. The scientists scrambled back, terrified of the Alpha King's rage. "You're experimenting on your own people? Murdering unborn children?" "I am perfecting our race," Catherine snapped, her poise cracking. "Look at us, Sebastian. We are dying out. The bloodlines are diluting. The humans are getting stronger. Their technology is outpacing us. We need stronger alphas. We need gods, not wolves." "You aren't making gods," Sebastian pointed to the cells. "You're making monsters." "And what is your daughter?" Catherine sneered. "I know about her, Sebastian. Beatrice told me. A child born with the moon mark. A child who shifts at 3. She is the success I have been striving for. She is the proof that my theories work." Sebastian froze. "What are you talking about?" "Clara didn't just get pregnant," Catherine laughed. "I spiked the water supply in the Omega dorms with a fertility compound 5 years ago. Clara was a test subject. She just happened to be the only one who survived the mating with a royal alpha. Lily isn't a mistake, Sebastian. She's my creation." The world turned red. Sebastian lunged. But Catherine pressed a button on her watch. A high-pitched frequency screamed through the room. It was a sonic disruptor, designed to incapacitate wolves. Sebastian fell to his knees, clutching his ears, roaring in pain. It felt like his brain was liquefying. "Take him," Catherine ordered the guards who poured into the room, "and find the mother. We need her ovaries to replicate the success." Guards swarmed Sebastian, beating him with shock batons. He fought back, biting, clawing, but the sonic weapon made it impossible to focus. He was overwhelmed. Suddenly the lights went out. Click! The emergency lights bathed the room in red. The sonic screech stopped. Clara stood on the balcony, holding a severed power cable, sparks flying around her. She had cut the main line. "Get away from him!" she screamed. Before the guards could react, the glass cells shattered. Clara had hit the remote release for the containment units. 50 angry, terrified, shifting Omega females poured out of the cells. They weren't warriors, but they were mothers. And they were cornered. Chaos erupted. The Omegas attacked the guards with primal fury. In the confusion, Sebastian shook off the dizziness. He grabbed the nearest guard and threw him into a rack of chemicals. He locked eyes with his mother. Catherine was backing away, terror finally dawning on her face. She turned to run toward her private elevator. "No, you don't," Sebastian growled. He chased her, tackling her, just as the elevator doors began to close. They tumbled inside. The elevator shot upward towards the roof helipad. Sebastian pinned his mother against the mirrored wall. His hand was around her throat, But he didn't squeeze. Not yet. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't drop you from the roof," he breathed. "Because I am your mother," Catherine gasped. "I gave you life. And you took Clara's. You tried to take Lily's. I did it for the pack, for the legacy." "The legacy is dead," Sebastian said, cold. "You killed it the moment you put a child in a cage." The elevator dinged. The doors opened to the stormy night on the roof. A helicopter was waiting, blades spinning. Catherine kneed Sebastian in the groin. A dirty human move. He grunted, doubling over. She pushed past him, running towards the chopper. "Wait!" Sebastian scrambled up, chasing her. Catherine reached the helicopter door. She turned back, shouting over the roar of the rotors. "You can't kill me, Sebastian. The council is with me. Half the alphas in the country support Project Genesis. If you kill me, you start a civil war." Sebastian stopped. He stood in the rain, looking at the woman who had raised him. He realized she was right. If he killed her, she became a martyr, a visionary silenced by a weak son. He needed to destroy her, but not with claws. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out his phone. Clara's burner phone, actually. He held it up. The screen was glowing. "What is that?" Catherine squinted. "A live stream," Sebastian yelled, "connected to the global pack network. Every alpha, every beta, every omega from London to Tokyo is watching this. They heard everything you said in the lab. They know about Project Genesis. They know you're a butcher." Catherine's face went white. She looked at the pilot. The pilot, a member of the Wolf Guard, was looking at his phone. He looked up at the Queen with disgust. "Take off!" Catherine screamed. "Take off now!" The pilot shook his head. He powered down the engines. "I have a daughter, Your Majesty," he said quietly. Catherine backed away, looking around wildly. The game was up. Her reputation, her power, her legacy. It was all gone. Sebastian walked toward her slowly. "It's over, Mother. The council will strip your title. You will spend the rest of your life in the deepest dungeon of the tribunal." Catherine looked at the edge of the roof, then back at Sebastian. The madness in her eyes clarified into a chilling resolve. "I am the Queen," she whispered. "I do not answer to tribunals." And before Sebastian could move, she turned and stepped off the ledge. "No!" Sebastian lunged, his hand brushing the fabric of her suit. But he was too late. He watched her fall into the churning black ocean below. The waves swallowed her instantly. Sebastian stood on the edge for a long time, the rain soaking him to the bone. It was done. The head of the snake was cut off. He turned back to the elevator. He had a family to find. Underscore, 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 underscore. Down in the lab, the battle was over. The guards had surrendered or fled. Clara was moving among the freed women, helping them, comforting them. When Sebastian walked in, the room went silent. The Omegas looked at him with fear. He was the king, the son of the monster who had caged them. Sebastian walked to the center of the room. He knelt on one knee, bowing his head to the women. "I did not know," he said, his voice echoing in the silence. "But I know now, and I swear to you, every single one of you will be cared for. You will be compensated, and you will be free." He looked up and found Clara. She was smiling through her tears. She ran to him. He caught her, burying his face in her neck. "Is it over?" she asked. "The Queen is dead," Sebastian murmured. "But the war, the civil war she threatened, that might still happen. There are still packs who believe in her way." "Let them come," Clara said fiercely. "We have the truth, and we have the king." Just then, the heavy blast doors of the asylum entrance blew open. Sebastian spun around, claws extending, shielding Clara. But it wasn't enemies. It was a small figure in yellow rain boots, marching into the lab, dragging a terrified Beatrice by a rope tied around her wrists. Lily had woken up, found the rope in the car, and apparently decided she was tired of waiting. "Daddy!" Lily shouted, her voice echoing. "The bad lady woke up and tried to run away, so I bit her ankle." Beatrice, the feared southern heiress, was limping and crying, utterly defeated by a 6-year-old. Sebastian stared at his daughter. Then he looked at Clara, and for the first time in 5 years, the Alpha King threw back his head and laughed. It was a sound of pure relief. "Come here, little wolf." He opened his arms. Lily dropped the rope and ran to him. Sebastian scooped her up, hugging her and Clara together. "Let's go home," he said. The silence that followed the Queen's fall was heavier than the storm. For the first week, the Alpha estate in Chicago felt less like a home and more like a crime scene, being slowly decontaminated. The physical traces of Catherine Sterling were removed with ruthless efficiency. Her portraits were taken down from the hallways. Her white orchids were replaced with wildflowers. The heavy velvet drapes that had kept the mansion in perpetual twilight were pulled back to let the harsh, cleansing sunlight stream in. But the psychological scars were harder to scrub away. Sebastian spent those first few days in a state of hyper-vigilance. He didn't sleep. He paced the perimeter of the estate, his wolf restless, waiting for a retaliation that never came. The live stream from the asylum roof had done its job. The pack world wasn't mobilizing for war. It was paralyzed in shock. The Iron Queen hadn't just died. Her legacy had been exposed as a rot at the core of their society. Clara, however, was the steel spine the family needed. She didn't hide in the guest rooms. She returned to the library, the very place she had once scrubbed floors and catalogued books as an invisible omega. This time, she walked in as the mistress of the house. She set up a command center on the mahogany desk, coordinating the rehabilitation of the women rescued from Blackwood Ridge. One evening, Sebastian found her there, asleep with her head on a stack of medical reports. Lily was curled up on a rug nearby, coloring in a picture of a wolf with bright purple crayons. Sebastian leaned against the doorframe, the knot in his chest loosening for the first time in 5 years. "She's drooling on the treatise," Lily whispered loudly, not looking up from her coloring. Sebastian chuckled, walking over to scoop his daughter up. "Mummy is tired, lil bit. She's saving the world." "Are you saving the world too, Daddy?" Sebastian looked at the sleeping woman who had defied an empire for him. "No," he whispered, kissing Lily's forehead. "I'm just making sure the world is safe enough for her to wake up." Underscore, 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 underscore. The peace, however, was fragile. 2 weeks after the rescue, the Council of Elders demanded an audience. They arrived in a cavalcade of black limousines, 12 old men and women who represented the ancient bloodlines. They had been Catherine's peers, her enablers. They walked into the grand hall with stiff backs, smelling of skepticism and old money. Sebastian sat on the Alpha throne, a massive seat carved from obsidian. He had never looked more like a king than he did in that moment, unshaven, exhausted, but radiating a power that made the air crackle. Clara stood beside him. She wasn't wearing a crown yet, just a simple blouse and trousers, but she held her head high. "This is irregular, King Sebastian," Elder Harrison began, his voice dry as parchment. "The Queen Mother is dead. There is no body. The Southern Packs are in disarray after the arrest of Beatrice Calloway. And you present us with a librarian and a child of unknown lineage." "Unknown lineage?" Sebastian's voice was a low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. "We have seen the child," Harrison sniffed. "She is cute. But cute does not make her an alpha heir. The Sterling line is dominant. If the child is not a true alpha, your claim to the throne weakens. The protocols state that if you marry a low-born omega—" "Careful, Harrison," Sebastian warned, his eyes flashing gold. "I am merely quoting the law," Harrison insisted, emboldened by the murmurs of the other elders. "We demand a blood test, a formal verification of the child's potential. Until then, the council will assume stewardship of the—" The double doors at the back of the hall banged open. Everyone turned. Lily stood there. She was supposed to be in the playroom with her nanny. Instead, she was wearing her yellow rain boots and holding a half-eaten apple. She looked at the 12 strangers in suits. She didn't look scared. She looked annoyed. "Who are the loud people, Daddy?" she asked, her voice carrying clearly across the cavernous room. Harrison sneered. "This is the child. She looks entirely human. Weak." He took a step toward her, intending to intimidate. "Girl, come here." It happened in a heartbeat. Lily dropped her apple. She didn't like the man's tone. She didn't like the way he smelled, like mothballs and arrogance. She stomped her foot. It wasn't a tantrum. It was a command. A shockwave of pure, unadulterated alpha aura exploded from the 6-year-old girl. It hit the elders like a physical wind. The windows rattled in their frames. The crystal chandelier swayed violently. Harrison's knees buckled. He didn't choose to fall. His wolf forced him down. One by one, the 12 most powerful wolves on the continent dropped to their knees, heads bowed, necks bared in instinctive submission to a superior predator. Lily blinked, the golden light fading from her eyes as quickly as it had appeared. She looked at her father. "Did I do a bad thing?" Sebastian stood up, a slow, terrified smile spreading across his face. He walked down the steps of the dais and placed a hand on Harrison's trembling shoulder. "No, Lily," Sebastian said, looking at the prostrate elder. "You did a very good thing." He leaned down to Harrison. "You wanted a blood test? You just got it. She is not just an alpha, Harrison. She is the apex. Now get up and bow to your Luna properly. Underscore, 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 underscore. The coronation, held 3 months later, was less of a ceremony and more of a global celebration. The packhouse grounds had been transformed. The iron gates were thrown open to the public for the first time in a century. Wolves from every pack, from the snowy ridges of Alaska to the deserts of Nevada, camped on the lawns. There were bonfires, music, and the smell of roasting meat filling the air. In the dressing room, Clara stared at herself in the full-length mirror. The gown was midnight blue, embroidered with silver thread that looked like constellations. It was beautiful, but her hands were shaking as she tried to fasten the clasp of the necklace Sebastian had given her, a simple silver chain holding the locket that had saved her life. "Here," Sebastian's voice came from the doorway. He was wearing a tuxedo that fit him like a second skin, the sterling crest pinned to his lapel. He walked over and deftly fastened the necklace, his warm fingers lingering on her neck. "I can't believe this is real," Clara whispered, leaning back against him. 5 years ago, I was heating up instant noodles in a motel microwave, terrified that a knock on the door meant death. Now, there are 10,000 people outside waiting to call me queen. Sebastian turned her around. They aren't cheering for the title, Clara. They are cheering for the woman who broke the cages. You didn't just survive. You changed the nature of our kind. You proved that compassion is stronger than bloodline purity. He kissed her, deep and slow, a promise renewed. And besides, he pulled back, grinning, if you get nervous, just look at our daughter. They looked over at the chaise lounge. Lily was currently trying to wrestle her plastic T-Rex into the intricate sash of her silk dress. Rexy wants to see the people, Lily insisted, grunting as she shoved the toy's tail into a velvet pocket. Rexy is a distinguished guest, Sebastian agreed solemnly. When the trumpet sounded, the world seemed to hold its breath. Sebastian and Clara walked out onto the massive stone balcony overlooking the estate. The roar that went up from the crowd was physical. It vibrated in their chests. It wasn't the polite, fearful applause of his mother's reign. This was a primal, joyous sound, a howl of liberation. Sebastian raised his hand, and the sea of people fell silent. He stepped to the microphone. "For generations," his voice echoed across the valley, "the Sterling kings have told you that strength comes from fear, that to be a wolf is to be a warrior and nothing else." He looked at Clara, who was holding Lily's hand. "I was wrong," Sebastian said. "We were all wrong. The strength of the wolf isn't in the teeth. It is in the pack. It is in the bond that refuses to break, even when the world burns." He reached out and took the heavy platinum crown from the velvet cushion held by the repentant elder Harrison. He didn't place it on his own head. He turned to Clara. "To my mate," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "who walked through fire." He placed the crown on her dark curls. Then he knelt. The king of the North American Alliance knelt on the cold stone before his wife and child. "And to my daughter," he said, looking at Lily, who was beaming, the plastic dinosaur poking out of her pocket, "the moonrise, the future." Lily didn't know the protocol. She didn't care. She threw her arms around his neck and hugged him tight. "I love you, Daddy." Sebastian stood up, lifting her with him. He held her high, one arm around Clara. "Long live the Luna!" he roared. "Long live the Luna!" the crowd screamed back. "Long live the air! Long live the air!" As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Sebastian looked at the horizon. The nightmare of the laboratory, the cruelty of his mother, the loneliness of the glass tower. It was all gone. He felt the small hand of his daughter resting on his shoulder. He felt the warmth of his mate at his side. For the first time in his life, the Alpha King didn't feel like a ruler. He felt like a father. He felt like a husband. He threw his head back and let out a howl, not of command, but of pure, unadulterated joy. Clara joined him, her voice lighter, melodic. And then Lily, with a high-pitched yip that turned into a surprisingly strong howl. And then 10,000 wolves joined in. The sound rose up, chasing the stars, a song that would be sung for generations, the story of the little girl, the plastic dinosaur, and the king who learned to love. The Alpha's watch had ended. The family's time had begun. And that is how a plastic dinosaur and a 6-year-old girl took down the most powerful tyranny in the shifter world. Sebastian Sterling thought he was the king of the world, but he learned the hard way that a mother's love is the only true superpower. They say blood is thicker than water, but in this story, loyalty was the only thing that mattered. What do you think? If you were Clara, would you have hidden the truth to protect your child, or would you have risked it all to tell the king? I want to see your answers in the comments below. Let's get a debate going. If this story gave you chills, if you cheered for Lily and cried for Clara, then please smash that like button. It helps us bring more of these epic sagas to life. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon, because next week we have a story about a rejected mate who became a billionaire CEO, and you do not want to miss her revenge. Thanks for listening, and remember, the pack is always watching. See you in the next video.